Hello, I'm Chuck Hughes, President and CEO of the Gary Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Spotlight on Business. And today, our spotlight shines on a young man who works for Indiana American Water. We have Justin Mount with us. Justin is the Major Account Manager. Justin, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Chuck. It's good to be here.
You know, Indiana American Water probably has been around as long as the city has been around. It's certainly a staple in the community. Tell us a bit about the company, just a bit for the viewers.
So you're exactly right. So in 1906, when U.S. Steel came to town, the water utilities came to town around the same time. You know, we provided water to U.S. Steel back then and continue to today. You know, we've been around for over 130 years. And it's been a big part of what's been going on with Gary since the day one. So,
well, Justin, you haven't been around, I think, all of those 130 years. You've been around a while. Now, I know you in terms of your history, and I know, in fact, when you went to American Water. But tell us a bit, if you might, about your journey to Indiana American Water. How did you get there?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, this is my third year in Indiana American Water. It's been a great opportunity being here. Prior to this, I've kind of had more of a different background. I've spent some time working for a U.S. Senator, before that a U.S. Congressman, and time also with a governor and lieutenant governor. So I've had a chance more on the state and elected side before having a chance to serve Indiana American Water.
You know, in terms of your past experience, and when we look at what happens with utility companies, I mean, regulations, having to deal with the legislature, those kinds of things, I would imagine that your background bodes very well for your employment there.
So far, it's been incredibly helpful, right? When you think of a water utility, you think of just the importance of what that means to a region and the background of infrastructure and investment to communities to make sure that we deliver safe, clean drinking water, and how you get that. I think those backgrounds do come into play. You know, things also working with the relationships. You know, I think in my major account role, so I work with the U.S. Steels. I work with the City of Gary. I work with the Gary School Corporation. They're all our major accounts. They're people that are very important to us. We want to make sure we value those and make sure that we provide the best service we can to them.
You know, tell us a bit about the operation itself. If you've been there 3 years, you've been there long enough to know how the operation works. If you want to tell us about how the employees, how everybody interact, just kind of give us a picture of how it all comes together so that we can get this great drinking water that you provide.
I'll be happy to. Before that, it's worth noting as well. So Indiana American Water is a subsidiary of American Water. So in Indiana alone, we're representing about 55 communities. We service 1.3 million people. So if you think of it this way, 1 in 5 Hoosiers drink our water. We have over 330,000 customers, I should say, that we service. Up here in Northwest Indiana, we serve about 250,000 people. It's really a third of our business. It's a lot, right? So when you think of how the process works, we are sitting by the largest body of fresh water on the planet. You know, we have Lake Michigan was such a valuable resource on so many levels. We have 2 feeds that we take, one by the U.S. Steel Mill, which is about 3 miles away from our water treatment facility in Gary. And we also have one at Ogden Dunes where we take in the one to treat the water. Once the water goes through the treatment process, then it goes out to our distribution system. We've got hundreds of thousands of miles of pipe that we service. You know, people some say that water's free. Perhaps, but to get it to your house where all you got to do is turn on the faucet to get it, that's where we come in. That's the importance of it. We've got over 135 dedicated people in Northwest alone, 360 across the state, that their sole purpose is to deliver safe, clean drinking water.
You know, it's kind of interesting that you don't hear much about water.
No.
You hear about other utilities, you hear about other issues that affect homeowners and people, but you don't hear much about water. Is that a good thing?
No. I mean, yes and no, right? I think it's something people take for granted. It's something they expect to happen. But with Indiana American Water owning this water utility over the last couple centuries, we've had to invest over $400 million, over $127 million over the last 5 years to make sure it's safe, clean drinking water. There's a price. You know, right now, if you would have asked the U.S. EPA, they would say we probably need to pay about $1 trillion over the next 25 years just to come up to standard where we're at in drinking water. You know, right now, Indiana American Water invests over $100 million on our footprint. It's important how we invest in that money to make sure that we have a chance to deliver the safe, clean drinking waters. People expect it, but it comes at a cost. It costs
And that's the interesting part of this, and that's why I'm happy to have you here as a guest, because we think it's like magic. Just turn on the faucet, and you get a good clean glass of water, or you get the water to cook with and do the things that you do. And you talked about all of these hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. Well, with that taking place, how has Indiana Water been able to make its product so affordable, relatively speaking?
I think the economies of scale is a big piece of it, right? So, like I said earlier, we serve 1.3 million Hoosiers, and we have a chance to regionalize that cost to make sure we kind of do it in a way that kind of makes more economic sense. We're very lean. We are very concerned about the cost of water. Water is a utility that people consume in their body, and it's the essence of life. So we got to make sure the investments we make are not in too much where it makes too cost for actually folks to get safe, clean drinking water.
You know, Justin, I wonder if I hear you and I hear how efficient you guys are and really how favorable you are to the customer, it seems as though you guys should have a blueprint for other industries, although I know one is different than the other and all of that. But what you guys have really been able to do is remarkable. And I'm just kind of happy and glad that you had the opportunity to come here and share some of those things, because the average person, again, totally unaware of all that goes into their drinking water, what makes it palatable for them, what makes it safe, clean, and this has been very enlightening. In fact, there's some more that we're going to delve into in the next portion of this program. So again, Justin Mount, and Justin is the Major Account Manager for Indiana American Water. He's our guest. We'll be back in a moment.
Don't tell anybody, but I'm a bookworm. I'm one of those very ambitious, highly motivated, overachievers you've heard about. When I enrolled in Gary Community Schools, I thought I'd be all alone. Sort of like an anomaly or a unicorn. Turns out, that wasn't true at all. There's lots of us here.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Whittington, host of A Day in the District. Make sure you tune in to our next episode right here on WSTG-TV.
And we're back on Spotlight on Business. I'm Chuck Hughes, President, CEO of the Gary Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, and we're with Justin Mount, the accounts manager, major account manager. I don't want to make you the corporal account management or the lieutenant. You are the major account manager. Justin, glad to have you on the program. Now, the first part of the show, we talked a bit about operation and how it all comes in place and all of that. But let's talk about the infrastructure investments that you make in a community. How important is that? And Justin, you mentioned about the proximity of Lake Michigan. How much of an advantage is that? Let's say if that huge body of water wasn't out there and your company was charged with the responsibility of providing water to communities.
You know, it's like as I mentioned, Lake Michigan is a jewel. We're very lucky to be in the shadow of the largest body of fresh water on the planet. But when you think about infrastructure, one of the things I didn't talk to that I want to talk more about, what's even more important in American water is the people who work for us, right? I have a chance to work with some great individuals. You know, here in Gary, we have Charles Kelly, who's been with the company for 65 years.
Wow.
He's worked for the company longer than anyone else. He's kind of an icon, in our business. He's kind of done what he's done really well, with high honor. And it kind of just shows that what kind of company we are. The folks want to stick around for 65 years.
65 years, wow.
It's really incredible. You know, we're blessed to be with a company and a utility that's reliable, right? We do the investments in the infrastructure, as you indicated, but we do treat our employees well because our employees are the ones who service our community and our people. And so it's important to kind of recognize, too, all those individuals, because back to the process, too, you got to think there's the production process where we get the water. You know, the water comes into the facilities to be treated. Then it goes out to our system distribution. We have a lot of folks who are out there in the middle of the night during a polar vortex at 3 in the morning doing what they need to do to make sure when you and I get up, we have a shower for a warm shower in the morning. You know, those are the kind of quality people that we have that work for us. While the infrastructure is important and critical, and we do invest in that, it's worth mentioning how important and even more critical our employees are to us.
65 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's a perfect segue, Justin, into that very famous landmark, the big American Water Company water tower. Kind of tell us about that, the history of it, and why it was removed.
Yeah, so the water tower was established. It was a steel riveted tank that was built back in 1906 when U.S. Steel was built in. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, a 200,000 gallon tank that used to service U.S. Steel. As Gary grew, the tower kind of became, I want to say inadequate, but it's too small and didn't become functioning. We tried to keep it as long as we could. We utilized it to actually backwash our filters, but it's been in service for so long, and it was inefficient to the point where it couldn't hold water. So a situation where water was spewing outside of the steel rivets and causing a concern. So there's deterioration happened to the concrete facade that was outside of it that kind of led to some safety issues. One of the things at Indiana American Water, that one of the most important things we pride ourselves on, safety. Safety to our employees, safety to our customers, and obviously safety to our product. When you have an old concrete facade right next to our largest water treatment facility, and if there's a structure that could break and damage that treatment facility, that could affect loss of water to 250,000 people, plus hurt our possible employees, a decision was made. It was just time to kind of look at a different direction.
You know, I tell you, that is a wonderful explanation, because people who were curious about why it was removed, you guys were not in the business of just destroying relics in the community. Once it's explained that way in terms of providing safety, and hey, listen, from 1906 or whenever it was erected, nothing sustains itself that long, and you've modernized things to such a point where it's not necessary. U.S. Steel can get their water, I would imagine, like the rest of us do.
Yeah, that's right. And so our job is to make sure that we deliver safe, clean drinking water. And we got to be good stewards with the dollars we get to make sure the cost is low. So we want our investments to be made to make sure we can deliver on that.
You know, let's go back to the employees again. Because you talked about, and I think when we look at what's going on nationally, we talk about our economy, we're talking about trying to get people hired and working. And are there opportunities there at the water company? And would you suggest that is a profession as it relates to whatever kind of relative areas of study that people should look towards?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely 100%. Because you think of the folks that work for us. We've got the scientists working on water quality side of it. You've got engineers kind of designing some of the different the needed assets. You've got some of the construction, the operation maintenance, from the actual pipe mechanics. It's not a job, it's a career. And as you mentioned earlier, it's a lifestyle.
65 years. I can't, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around 65 years. What a guy. I'd like to meet him one day.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. And I think it just kind of shows, though, for a company, for someone to stick around that long, it's important. And I think when your job is to make sure that you deliver safe, clean drinking water, it's easy to get up every day and do it and fight for it. And I think, you know, we pay our people well, we treat our people well, and I think we have a great workforce that showcases that.
You know, as I had mentioned in the earlier segment, the fact that you guys are not talked about that much, but to your point, you want, like what we're doing, you really want the public to know all that's involved so they can appreciate more, and not just the taste of the water, where they can certainly appreciate the process, to know the effort, the labor, the technology that's gone into providing this water. And I think it's important to know that, to your point, that there are people who've been behind that. And that's very interesting. All right, we're going to take a little break right now, Jay. Hold that thought, and whatever it is, keep it in your mind. We'll use that when we come back. Jason Mounts, my guest. Folks, we'll be back in a moment.
When I told my friends I wanted to become an astronaut, they laughed and called me a space cadet. Fortunately, my parents took me seriously. They enrolled me in Gary Community Schools where I had STEM summer camp, dual credit classes, and certified teachers. Now, I'm a Lilly Scholar and my folks are all over the moon.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
It's gross. I don't really want to talk about it.
She didn't want to at first, but I mean, it's no big deal. Everybody does it.
I was ready, totally ready, because we had been practicing this dance for weeks.
He was supposed to take this girl to this dance, but
I sprained my ankle at track practice.
I hate sharing anything personal. It's so disgusting.
For the dance, I let her wear my shoes and she hated it, but I thought she looked great in them.
he could barely even walk.
I ended up taking some pills for my pain.
Yeah, they were my mom's, but
It didn't go well.
If it's not yours,
If it's not yours,
if it's not yours,
Hey you,
don't take it.
don't take it.
don't take it.
don't take it. You won't believe what happened next.
And we're back again on Spotlight on Business. Justin Mount is my guest. Justin is the major account manager for Indiana American Water. Now, Justin, when we talked about the tower, you talked about the safety aspect of it, being careful about your employees and such. All right, now let's juxtapose that to what's going on in our country. We just had an insurrection recently at the Capitol. There's always thoughts of terrorism. When people talk about terrorism, they talk about the electric grids, the water supply. What are you guys doing, and what is your mindset, and what kind of preparation does Indiana American Water provide for those kinds of threats?
It's something we take very seriously. The one nice thing we have about kind of our organization and our ability to kind of have the resources necessary, as I mentioned early on, you know, I am one of 7,000 employees that are in 15 different states. And we also have a lot of expertise to make sure we're very careful about security. I know there's a situation down in Florida early in the year, they got a lot of folks pretty concerned. We have a cybersecurity department that we're kind of very mindful of. After 2001, which is almost 20 years ago now, which is astonishing, we had to make some changes to our system where we made sure there's fencing around our utilities, that we make sure that there's not any chance of any type of contamination. We have tight guards on our cybersecurity, and we're very mindful of that. You know, again, as I keep saying, delivering a safe, clean drinking water is our priority. So we make sure that we have the necessary safeguards in place to ensure that.
I tell you what, again, the more I talk to you, the more blessed that we are to have Indiana American Water and, of course, one of the 5 Great Lakes right next to us. And I think that really it's on the minds of people now in terms of security, particularly what's going on, not just in this country, but in the world, those threats. And again, as I said, the water supply is generally one of the ones that's most talked about. And so,
and it's a concern too, if I don't mind, because one of the things that we're very mindful of as well is our drinking source does come from Lake Michigan. So we do have to be mindful of what goes into our intakes. And so part of what I do and part of my role with the company is to work with different stakeholders and different groups to have those discussions of kind of having a talk of what goes in the water. We got to be mindful of. We have to be aware of what's happening to make sure we can treat it accordingly. The other part that I try to do too is communication. You know, we got a great mayor here, Mayor Prince, who I talk with on quite occasion. I've got 7 different community leaders I deal with in Northwest alone, probably 40, 50 throughout the state. It's important to have that kind of communication and dialogue because while we're investor-owned, I still think we're a partner with the city. And we work in as many ways we can with the cities we serve to kind of help improve their communities. We have the chance to make investments to make sure we have safe, clean drinking waters, but we do it in a partnership way.
You know, you mentioned the term stakeholder, and that to me suggests that you guys have been really a great corporate citizen as well, because you know I've encountered you at several community forums, community meetings, information sessions, those kinds of things. Yeah, it's been sort of retarded to a bit because of the COVID to some extent,
absolutely.
but you guys are very visible out there. Speak to the importance of engaging in the community in that manner.
I think it's important, you know, because we are part of the community. You know, we try to be a good corporate citizen. We have a chance to give back to it as possible. I know this is near and dear to your heart with the fire safety side of things, but we had a chance to deliver a fire safety grant to Chief O'Donnell recently.
Oh, great.
It's a chance to kind of say thank you. Obviously, the fire department, we are partners with them. They utilize our water. They provide us safety for our citizens. So we try to get back on that front. We have an environmental grant we give out on an annual basis. And we do utilize our expertise. You know, I've got a background, as you mentioned earlier, with government affairs, but I also spend a lot of time in economic development. And I understand that to any good community, the best social program is typically a job. And if I can find a way from our company to kind of help foster and grow that, I think it's important to do so. And I'm lucky they gave me the chance to kind of be able to be part of the community like that.
You know, you mentioned working with the fire department, and I guess I'm going to throw in there those 34 years that I was a member of the Gary Fire Department, and often we just experienced some very inclement weather, frigid temperatures, but I just want you to know just how rewarding it was to know that the water company had serviced the hydrants. The worst thing in the world is to see a blaze and maybe someone in the structure and a hydrant is inoperable because of the weather or such or whatever, but we could report any hydrant that was malfunctioning. Immediately someone would address it. I think that that's another facet and aspect that the community should be aware of, your response, your commitment to the community, and it's amazing how it all comes together, and it's more than just about water. It's about saving lives as well.
And if I can do a quick PSA as well, because I know we're getting some snow melted, but some those remind folks of, when you see a hydrant, dig around the hydrant, give it a chance to make some space, because you know, last couple of weeks we had some horrific weather, and the worst thing you want is a time of need, as you know, is to make sure you can have access to the hydrant. So, a quick PSA for you.
Well, Justin, we are at the point in the program now where we've got a young person that wants to find out what's going on.
And now the big question, why is water not free? We may never know.
That's a great question. I think that's one of the questions we get quite often is, why do you have to pay for water? Water's free. And I would agree with you. If you want to go down to Lake Michigan with a bucket and grab it, it's free to do so. However, if you want the water delivered to your home, there is a cost to that, and that's the reality. There's a cost for the piping system. There's a cost for the treatment facilities. You know, through the process itself, when the water gets piped in, there's a chemical process we got to do to make sure it's safe, clean drinking water. Then we got to be able to deliver that water to your home, and that also comes at a cost. You know, I mentioned earlier the massive investments we made, over $400 million to the infrastructure needed to deliver that safe, clean drinking water here in Northwest Indiana alone. And those at that cost to make sure that we have drinking water, that's why we pay it. You know, we pay it's 1 penny per gallon we deliver. And I'm sure if you ever drink bottled water, it's quite more than that. But for us to get it to your home, all you got to turn the faucet on. There is a cost because of the actual mechanism in place to make sure we get that water to you.
But listen, I want to thank you for being on the program.
My pleasure to be here.
Chuck Hughes saying that'll do it then for this edition of Spotlight on Business. See you next time.
WSTG-TV.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paige McNulty. I'm the manager for the Gary Community School Corporation, and I am pleased to be joined today with the Jackson 5 family members, Tito and Marlon Jackson. Hi, how are you? Thanks for being here today.
Not only are we members of the world-famous Jackson 5, but we are proud products of the Gary schools.
Growing up in Gary, our school system afforded great opportunities from academics to extracurricular activities.
And today is no different. This is why we encourage you to enroll your child in the Gary schools today.
For more information, please call 219-881-5466 or visit garyschools.org. And please remember, enroll in Gary Schools today.
Yes,
right.
Definitely enroll.
Gary Schools.
Strong, resilient.
Built for education.